Welcome to another episode of the Basalon Cycling Podcast. I'm your host Sherry. Make sure to check the links in the description to get exclusive discounts, and you also support the channel. Won't cost you anything additional, and a small commission will go to me. Thank you for your support, and subscribe and rate the show in Apple Podcasts. Today we have a very special episode. We're gonna have a preview of the Transcontinental Race 2024 route, how it's like to race it, why I'm coming back to this race this year. Also, we're gonna check and analyze some of the really cool bike setups you submitted for ultra cycling and adventure cycling, so make sure to stay tuned till the end. And also how it's like to race as a pair versus solo with the one and only Basalon cameraman. Some of you might recognize him from my videos. Welcome to the show, Gereon.
Hey Sherry, glad to be here.
Thank you for joining. I'm really excited to have you. I mean, a lot of people know you from my videos, so we race as a pair together. Quite a few of the races. Uh, how do you think is racing ultra races as a pair like?
That's a loaded question. No, it's very different to solo racing. It has its own challenges, but it's also a very unique experience. So I don't think you can really compare it one to one, because racing as a pair is a more like all-encompassing experience, and it has a different way to challenge you. It's less of a physical challenge, but it's more of a like team working, psychological communication challenge. Rather than a pure physical test. So I think it's quite an exciting way of racing, to be honest.
Well, last year we did the Transcontinental race as a pair and we survived. And this year we are coming back. Why is that? It wasn't hard enough the first time?
I remember the last part of your TCR movie where I actually said in Thessaloniki I'm not allowed to come back because it's too dangerous. And then yeah, here we are again, I guess.
Yeah, and talking about the Transcontinental race, let's have a look at the race course. It's quite interesting. So we have here the route of the TCR.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think at the start at Roubaix? I mean, they included quite some cobbles.
Yeah, I actually, because it's the 10th edition, I was expecting them to start in London, like the first edition. I think the finish in Istanbul, that was to be expected because there was the first TCR. But I also understand that starting in Roubaix is probably a bit easier logistically and also better for the carbon footprint. But including the cobbles in Roubaix and then going back to Gerardsbergen to do the cobbled climb to the chapel and have the people cheering you on is I think quite a unique experience, and I think it adds a nice twist to it compared to last year. So I think the first checkpoint, the start, that's quite an epic one. CP1, Mangatsko Sedlo in Slovenia. It's quite an epic pass. I've looked at Google. I've never been there, but it looks like a really epic pass. Quite tough. Also quite difficult to get there. I mean, you have to pass probably through Germany. I think most people are going to go through Germany. That's like the straight line, and go over the Alps. But there's so many different ways to get there. So it's going to be quite interesting to see where everybody is going. I think CP2.
That you know.
that I know. That's we've done Bihard a couple of years ago, and that was actually one of the checkpoints of Bihard. So I have some painful memories of going up there during the night. But yeah, we made it up for the sunrise, and that was quite epic views. So fond memories, but also painful memories, as you might remember.
Yeah, it was actually our first race as a pair. It was a real test. Huh?
Yeah, that was a real test. I think that was probably one of the hardest climbs I've done until that point in my cycling career.
Yeah, and this is the parkour that has gravel like insane.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the pictures. We've done the route together, looking at trail view, and when you see the trail view of the parkour, you think some of the sections are not that bad, but some others look quite big rocks. I don't know what to expect there.
Yeah, been there, having seen the roads that look on the map quite nice, that are quite tough in reality. I'm curious to see how it evolves. But yeah, CP2, I think it's still nothing like completely out of the norm. CP3 in Kosovo, that's going to be an interesting one. I've never been to Kosovo. Looking at the map, looking at the routing options, there's many different ways to get there. So it's also going to be an interesting one for the pointy end of the field to decide, are you going more straight, are you going gravel, are you going road? So it's going to be some tactical plays going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then straight through the Balkans to Turkey. There's several different options to get there. I think there might be significant time gaps between the routes, so again, will be quite technical. I don't think there's going to be a main route that everybody is going to take. I think there's going to be different approaches to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's also ferries again. People are going to remember a couple of years ago the drama with Uber and Strops with the ferries in Bulgaria. There's
Yeah.
two different options in Turkey, so it's going to be interesting to see who does what there. And then there's a parkour in Turkey on the Asian side as well. So I'm quite curious how that's going to be. Never been there. Heard good things, heard scary things. So gonna be an
Yeah.
interesting one. Also, I think it's already quite warm down there. So looking at the weather forecast, it's gonna be a heat battle of attrition, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And what's the part you are looking forward to? There must be something.
Yeah, I certainly look forward to the regions I've never been.
Mm-hmm.
So Kosovo, for example, all the bike touring reports you read are quite epic. I'm looking forward to go back to Montenegro. I really enjoyed it last year in TCR. It was really beautiful, but we hit the Dometor National Park during the night, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe this time we hit it during the day. I hope so to have a bit more of a view there, but because everybody who's been there during the day said it was like absolutely stunning. So I'm quite intrigued to experience that. Slovenia last year was super beautiful, so going back
Yeah.
there, really hoping that we get to Monga during the day, but yeah, you never know how the race evolves, right? So
Yeah, and hopefully no gravel. I remember I had a flat tire in the descent in Slovenia last year, and then I was screaming in the mountain, and you actually
yeah,
had to climb up, like, I don't know, 5 minutes up a still gravel road to help me
yeah,
out because, oh my God, I
I,
was hopeless.
I probably waited too long to turn around because I was like, maybe she's just slow and descending, but nope, no, that was a flat tire.
Yeah, I think this is really racing as a pair. Sometimes you don't know how the other person is, not only physically or in location, but mentally.
Yeah.
That was one, maybe the biggest challenge last year. Like you always had your ups when I had my lows, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, and I mean, last year it was quite surprising because we've done Be Hard, we've done Trans-Iberica, so the expectation was probably that it would be smooth sailing all the way. But then the conditions of the race were really quite challenging with starting with heavy rain in the Alps, having some mechanicals already in the first night, then really, really cold descents during the night in the Alps, wet, then struggling to find decent accommodation in the Balkans, heat wave. It was really quite a challenge, I have to say.
And what's your secret for coping with racing as a pair versus solo? Because you also have done quite a few races solo, Badlands, and one race around the Netherlands. How different it is, and what's your strategy to cope with racing as a pair versus solo?
Yeah, I mean, solo is easy in the way that it's just you having to battle it out with yourself. Practically, it's you can go fast when you feel good, you can go slow when you feel bad, you can sleep whenever you want. As a pair, it's all about communication and planning and anticipation and empathy and collaborating under stressful conditions, and that makes it very, very challenging. So it's for me, it's really managing my resources in a way that I keep some capacity to be able to push myself a bit more when you're feeling well, and to hold myself back when you're feeling bad, to like not overstretch you, and to be quicker as a pair and as a result.
Yeah, I think that's the team spirit. I think that's why not many pairs cross together the finish line. There's always a bit of conflict there. So I think having a set of rules before the event is quite important. Like no matter what happens, we stick together, and this is not like you go fast and I just do my race because I cannot keep up with you, because there's only one team, not like a single person. I think you really have to forget about you as a person and think only as a team, like nearly the other person as a extension of you.
Yeah, totally agree. It's really, if you don't think about it as a unit, uh, you're not gonna make it as a unit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I know you have a very demanding job. So how do you manage to balance ultra cycling training? How do you prepare for these kind of long races? I mean, it's a logistic channel challenge also, I guess, for training.
Yeah, I mean it's you're quite right. So to balance demanding job, long hours, and a lot of travel for work with training, it's really about yeah, a good approach to periodization. So take the blocks where you have the time to put in the volume, and then put the intensity when you don't have the time, and strategically plan around your work trips and workload, so that you can use, for example, work travel to kind of recover physically, even when it's
Hmm.
stressful mentally. And then vice versa, when you have more time, you do the more relaxing, longer, but good endurance rides and balance it out a bit. And always focus on recovering. For example, I'm measuring my HRV every morning and see, okay, how is it evolving, and then adjust my training to stresses.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. I actually just got this is like a ring that you can use a bit like a smartwatch but smaller, and you measure your HRV, temperature, sleep. I really find it useful. Also, as you mentioned, HRV for recovery and looking when maybe you can train harder, or if you have a stressful job, like when stress impacts your health or your performance. For example, it's funny sometimes a work trip can be more stressful than high intensity training. I think you've seen that, right?
Yeah, so I actually use a watch to record it. It's a bit more clunky, but it does the same practically. And yeah, I see that traveling actually has a bigger impact on my overall recovery and my HRV levels than interval training. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ultra Human Ring is quite nice because you have all the data in one app, so you don't have to look at the different apps to check the sleeping data, the HRB, and everything. So it gives you like a aggregated score, which I find quite useful. So definitely a useful tool for training, and especially if you like to look analytics, etc. For example, what is also interesting that people look at after the races is the race flow, how they progress during the races, because you tend to start really fast, and after your speed and brakes start to extend and speed starts to go down. So it's quite useful to look after your races to the in the I think in the tracking website, no, track leaders, or
Uh,
yeah,
I'm not sure which one is used for TCR, but most of
follow
them
my
have it.
challenge.
Follow my
Hmm.
challenge. Yeah, most of them have it. The race flow is quite useful. I tend to look into it after solo races to see how my pacing strategy was, if it's decent or not. Especially the ones where you don't actually do breaks, like in Badlands, where you just race in one go. It's quite nice to see how the race flow goes, and if you paced it right, or if you trail off too much to the end. I tend to start relatively slow. So practically in all my solo races, I kind of start at the front, drop back to mid pack, sometimes even further, and then tend to roll it up at the end.
Yeah, it was quite interesting your experience in Badlands, that you had a really bad crash and everybody was going really fast at the beginning, and you managed to go from place 40 to 8th, I
Yeah,
think, at
something
the
like
end.
that. I'm not sure, but Badlands was a bit of a tricky one. I started first descent. I lost my light. And I simply I just realized after the first descent that I lost my main front light. Then I had a crash, a pretty bad one actually, with plenty of bruises and broke off my aero bars. That was also within the first hour or so. So I didn't have any aero bars, which in that edition, because there was a lot of tarmac, was pretty bad. And lost a good chunk of my nutrition as well, because during the crash fell on the bladder and everything, so that wasn't ideal. I had another
Mm-hmm.
crash 2 hours in, and
Because of the lights, or could
no,
you see anything?
that wasn't because of the lights. But that was then the first night wasn't that great because I only had a Hammond light, so it's kind of a jinxed race, I have to say. But then I found a bike shop, bought a new light, and things started to get better.
Yeah, and we are going back to Badlands, but you are doing solo and I'm doing solo as well.
Yeah,
So is this the revenge for last year?
let's see, let's see. First, let's get TCR done.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. For example, how different are the setups sometimes, and different and similar for ultra off-road and off on-road races. What do you think would be the most likely choice for TCR this year? Because I'm looking at the route and the parkours, and there's possibility for a lot of gravel. I thought after last year in Peshkopi, the epic is over. So if you haven't watched it, I recommend you watch the Transcontinental race video. Uh, I I walked for like 40 kilometers, walking
Nah,
basically the whole night.
well, it wasn't 40K, but yeah, it was a couple of hours at least.
Well,
Uh,
felt like it.
no, I don't know. There's quite a lot of gravel this year, but I think the majority is going to be on road tires. I'm certainly going to ride road tires. Bit of a bigger volume one, but still road tires.
Which
Um,
ones?
Conti 5000,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of riders that go for a bit of a bigger tire, maybe even a small or a narrow gravel tire, and might be a
Mm-hmm.
good choice. Depends a bit how you route. If you go for the straightest route possible, then a gravel tire is probably the right choice.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about bike setups, our listeners and viewers submitted there. So we're gonna have a look at some of the interested setups you submitted. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to check the show notes and the blog. You can find some of the pictures there. And yeah, we'll keep doing this. So you can submit your bike setups. It's always interesting to see what the ingenious solutions people come up with. So let's jump into that. So here we have the first four. Let's start with the first one. I think it's a trek checkpoint, right?
Yeah, that seems to be a track checkpoint with quite a lot of bags on it, quite neatly integrated, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more
interesting
like a
choice.
gravel setup, no? Like a
Yeah,
fast gravel setup.
that's certainly a fast gravel setup. The checkpoint, we actually got one for you back, I think, a couple of years ago, and then swapped it over because it was a bit too long. It's
Yeah,
quite a long reach because it's a gravel bike.
yeah.
But certainly a neat setup.
Yeah, and the second one, I don't recognize the brand of the bike, but I definitely recognize the place. That's Yajorina, the checkpoint of Bihar, the one you said that was one of the hardest climbs. I mean, I will never forget that you were suffering.
Uh,
like never before up there, but it's certainly beautiful. If you never done the Bihar Ultra race, I totally recommend it. It's like a beautiful race. The course is amazing and it's so well organized. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think one of the best races I've done. And this setup is quite nice. It seems lightweight, which makes sense for such a race. The Bihar has a lot of elevation, so and there's a lot of resupplies along the way. So I think going for a lightweight setup is the way to go. And I see some nice aero bars.
yeah, yeah. Looks like it.
And the third one, we have a Fara. I love this color. The off-white is definitely my favorite, one of my favorite colors,
Yeah.
together with my new dusty sunset.
Only thing is, yeah, one saddleback for ultra racing. That must be a very short ultra race.
Exactly. And the fourth one must be a really really short race, only a top tube back and a bar back, but
Yeah,
certainly some Garmin, Ramen TV. We have there Apidura.
looks to me like a mullet setup.
Very interesting. Let's jump into the other ones. So here we have a very aero setup, a Canyon Air Road, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, that's a aero rod bike. Probably looks like, yeah, it looks like he swapped out the handlebars from an integrated cockpit to be able to mount the aero bars. Nicely integrated frame back. But yeah,
Yeah,
quite aggressive for ultra racing for sure.
yeah, and it has the nice bladder. No, I think it's something from triathlon. I think
Yeah,
the bike next to it is also quite iron and had the same idea. No, also kind of has the triathlon
yeah,
top
like the
bottle.
yeah, like a drinking system. I had that on my first iteration of an ultra racing bike, which was a Kenyan time trial bike with a system like that. The only problem with these is that they tend to rattle quite a bit, and that can
Hmm.
get really annoying over a day or two. So I
Yeah.
switched that out for a hydration bladder.
Yeah, but I'm loving the way he mounted, I think, a bag in the saddle, making it aero, like an
Yeah,
aero fin. That's really
looks
cool.
looks very aero. I personally have issues with leg rubbing, so for me it wouldn't be a good thing. But yeah, it certainly looks aero.
And the next one, I really like the design, a specialized one. Looks like kind of more ready for adventure. This one with gravel tires.
Yeah, yeah. Looks like a specialized gravel bike
Hmm.
with plenty of bags. So that's
Yeah.
certainly fit for longer rides. And I think there's even a nice fender integration at the front tire.
Ah, that could be possible.
Uh,
And then we have a rim brake bike. That's definitely lightweight. There's some cobbles there, maybe somewhere. I cannot recognize the place. I thought
no,
maybe Belgium, but I'm not sure.
me neither. But that's certainly sturdy with some aluminium rims. Yeah, that's still a bike where you can more or less maintain everything by yourself when it breaks. So that's quite handy for races like TCR for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or for example, we see in Tour Dubai now that some people electronic shifting is really nice, but if it breaks in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not sure you can find a SRAM derailleur in the middle of Kosovo.
Probably not.
Uh,
Yeah, electronics always has the issue when the contacts break or get wet or whatever, then you can't really budge it. So,
mhm.
yeah,
Let's jump to the other one. So we have I think a gravel bike, no? And it has a lot of clearance with some gravel tires
uh,
and a
pl-
nice frame back and a saddle back, and I think a Brook saddle, no? Looks quite comfy.
yeah, looks like a Brooks saddle and plenty of mounts, even a bottle at the fork.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, definitely ready for adventure. And another one, also ready for adventure. We have some panniers at the front. What are your thoughts about panniers at the front? Maybe if you go into more remote places, let's say if you do something like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. If you have to carry a lot, the panniers at the front are quite nice when you have a lot of weight already at the back because it like stabilizes the bike quite nicely, so you don't have all the weight on one part of the bike. So the handling stays quite nice. So for really long stuff, Yeah, certainly a good idea. Not the most aero setup, but yeah, you see, with that kind of luggage, you have to leave it somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the next one is rather minimalistic, everything matching from Florian. We have old cycle lights, bags, the Aero bar bag, really
Some
good choice.
sandals.
Yeah, some sandals, always useful. I think, yeah, sandals are underrated.
Yeah.
In my bikepacking trips, I always use it. And I think maybe if you are racing and you cannot wear your shoes, you can always switch to sandals, right? You see it a lot in
Mhm.
the Tour de Bike, the guys cutting all off their shoes and making it like sandals, or straight like buying some sandals to be able to keep on pedaling.
Yeah. Then we have
Uh,
a full-on Apidura setup.
Yep. Yeah, we have Apidura foot pouch, frame bag. I think it's the Expedition
Yeah.
series, and we
Yeah.
have an Orlip saddlebag. Definitely a lot of capacity. I really like full frame bags. I think it has a lot of storage, and I mean, you use some of the Apidura ones, right?
Yeah, I used different full frame bags. It's a nice option. I started out using them with bladders, but I went to hydration packs because bladders typically don't really keep really tight during the races, and you end up flooding the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's nice to store stuff, but it also gets messy really quickly in there. So I kind of went to having a couple of bottles, normal frame bag, and a hydration pack. I prefer that for finding my stuff during the race.
And we have another page. We have some, to summarize a little bit, we have some saddlebags. I think it's mostly road bikes. Anything. We have a suspension fork here. It's more like a gravel bike.
Is that a
I think a
suspension
mountain
fork?
bike. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
On the fourth one, we have, I think,
Yeah,
a mountain bike with a suspension fork.
yeah, that's a
Mm-hmm.
mountain bike. Even has a mountain bike bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a, for some gravel races, a mountain bike might be a better choice, to be honest. For Bohemian Border Bash, I was like, At the beginning, when I started the race, I was happy I had a gravel bike, but as the race progressed, I was like, I wish I had a mountain bike. Then I saw the guys passing me by with the mountain bike, like just going down the trails. I was like, just walking with my gravel bike
yeah,
down the hill. So yeah, for some so-called ultra gravel races, well, they don't say it's gravel. Sometimes they say off-road, so you kind of have to decide, right?
yeah. I think that the tendency is that people are going more and more towards suspension forks, mountain bike tires. So I think drop bar mountain bikes is going to be a more common choice, especially in races like Badlands going forward.
Yeah, and we have a really nice aero setup. We have a cycle light, aero bar bag, and a tail fin. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. And another Sinelli. Yeah, really nice setups. And some epic sign in a village. That looks really nice. And the next ones, we have Julian, and actually race with him in Bohemian Border Bash. He has a really nice stork. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, German brand. It's quite a lightweight gravel bike, lots of tire clearance. Seems like a very aero setup as well. High
Yeah.
profile rims, no aero bars though, so more for the adventure bike races.
Yeah, and we see again Yahorina. Seems that we have a lot of viewers that have done the Bihar Ultra race.
Yeah,
It seems that Yahorina leaves a mark. Really nice picture.
yeah.
Also got there in the night, I see.
The titanium bike with
hmm
full-on Apidura bags.
Pretty
And
clean setup, I must
uh,
say. I really like it.
yeah, the fourth one I can't really say. I just see
Uh,
a massive handlebar roll. Not the most
yeah,
aero choice.
Yeah, but this is, I think, more like looks quite wild, no? Riding
Yeah.
over the grass. So I think it's more for your sleeping gear, or maybe, yeah, race that takes place in a more remote place. And the last four we have here. We have a nice epic sunset matching the bike. I really like
Yeah.
that. Then we have a minimalistic one, like a saddle bag, a long top tube bag, a frame bag. Then we have a funny one, went wild. That's a interesting choice for ultra races, I must say. And then
Yes,
the fourth
collection.
one, yeah, the fourth one seems to have like some costume bags, right?
Yeah, using every millimeter of space in the frame triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
horses for courses, no?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I love about ultracycling, that everybody has their own take, and not one mold fits all. Well, thank you so much for being in the show. I'm looking forward to race Transcontinental with you. Let's see if we can make it together to the finish line, right? It starts in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So not much
So,
time left to prepare.
last finishing touches on the setup, a couple of long rides, and then tapering and eating a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And for our viewers, don't forget to check the all my gear in the links below. Also, some exclusive discounts, and if you want to support the channel, so make sure to check all info in the description. I will also leave a link to your Instagram, Gereon Cycling, if you want to see some of the cool setups he come up with. And thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button below. And if you are listening in Apple Podcasts and Spotify, rate the show. And if you want to support the channel, you can check the links in the description to get exclusive discounts, and also a small commission will go to me to keep the channel running. So, until the next episode, thank you.